the Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome to Capitol View. I'm Jay Bir. The regular session is now less than a month away. Some early bill filings will surely make this one as exciting as ever. But with the Republican supermajority in both chambers, that begs the question, what will Democrats be able to do this coming session? So here to help us figure all that out via Zoom, as you see there, we've got Senator-elect Clarke Tucker representing District 32, and then also Representative Nicole Clowney out of District 86. Senator-elect Clarke, we'll start with you. First off, I guess welcome back to the Arkansas legislature. It's been a minute, and now you're back. I guess on the Senate side of things, you know, what are some of the plans? What are the hopes for Democrats over on in that chamber?
Well, thank you for having me, Jay. I like to say, I guess I didn't learn my lesson the first time, and now I'm back. But I'm very excited to be back, and one of the reasons I'm excited to be back is because I feel like during the session, legislators of both parties really come together to get things done for the most part, and that's what I'm hopeful about again. Obviously, and this is admittedly a naive and idealistic view, but I understand why we have to run with party affiliations when we run, but then when we come together, we check at least some of that at the door so that we can come together and actually work for the people who elected us to be there. And we have such a pressing need now more than ever with not just COVID-19, but some of the election issues that we saw this year. Personally, I know that I always want to make sure that our democracy is as safe and secure and accessible as possible, and that's a nonpartisan issue for the most part, and I plan on working on that. With the COVID-19 response, obviously, from a public health standpoint, we need to make sure that everyone in the state is safe, but there's also huge economic and educational ramifications from that. And, you know, just looking at the economic aspect of it, we have to make sure, I think last week was about 850,000 people in the United States filed for unemployment, which was more than any week of the Great Recession about a decade and 12 years ago. And so we need to make sure that our workers are surviving. And at the same time, on the employer side, we need to make sure that our businesses, local businesses that depend on people coming in, whether it's a restaurant or a store or a theater or whatever the case may be, that we're supporting all of these businesses and workers, because we don't want to look up next summer, hopefully when a lot of folks are vaccinated, and see just an economic fallout that would be almost impossible to recover from.
And Representative Clowney, let me bring you into this now. Just kind of looking at the standing committee setup here, it's just always interesting to see how this thing gets broke down, especially when you've got the supermajority. And it seems like Democrats, at least over on the House side, really putting their eggs into the insurance and commerce, city, county, local affairs, and also into judiciary. I guess kind of what's some of the thought processes behind those three standing committees?
You know, I think the thought process behind what Democrats as a whole are going to try to do this session is to try to get to work solving the problems that we have heard so much about over the last 2 years. You know, it's always a part of our job, obviously, to listen to constituents and address constituents' concerns. But you can imagine over the last 9 months, those have been just, you know, amplified by a million. And so we hear calls every day from renters who are afraid of being kicked out of their home because they can't pay their rent due to the coronavirus. We get calls every day from folks who are afraid of the return of laws that will make them feel less safe instead of more safe, whether that be, you know, a gun law or a law that maybe we have a gap and we're failing to protect victims of domestic violence who are more vulnerable now than ever before. You know, all of these things are things that Democrats just really want to get to work at solving. I worry a little bit that this session will be, there will be sort of a specter over the session, which is the looming 2022 statewide races. I think we may see a lot of things that are really big, attention-grabbing headlines. I'll tell you, we're just really interested in digging in and doing the work and taking care of our Kansans, because that's our job.
And this question kind of for either one of you here, I guess, you know, how do you try to sort of flex some influence, especially when you're up against a supermajority? And, you know, and Clarke, I know you kind of said, for the most part, here in Arkansas, there's not a lot of that national division, but there is enough to where it's noticeable. And I guess I'll kind of start with you here. You know, how do you try to be able to work with Republicans to try to get some of these things pushed across that they may not necessarily agree with maybe all the way?
Well, I just find in my experience that when you actually sit down with people face to face, which may be more problematic this year given the pandemic, but when you actually sit down with people face to face and you genuinely listen to their perspective, that you're able to reach a consensus, and you actually, every single member of the legislature, Democratic or Republican, I have a lot to learn from. And their perspectives are very valuable to me, and I mean that sincerely. So when I sit down and listen to their perspective, and I would sit down with Republicans when I was in the House, and I would always learn something. Frequently, I would change whatever legislation I was working on as a result of those conversations. And I think that would always improve the bill and the process. And so to me, it's really just about connecting on a human level, sitting down with people face to face. And I think when you do that, and you're genuine, because the issues, as Nicole said, that we're working on are the ones that actually affect Arkansans every day in their lives, and that we care so passionately about. And that passion comes through in addition to your sincerity and learning from your colleagues, Republican and Democratic alike. So I think when you approach it that way, and hopefully that holds true this session as well, we'll see. But hopefully, I think when you approach it that way, you're able to actually get some things through.
And Nicole, just having to deal with just a lot more personalities over there, just in pure numbers over there on the House side. You know, I guess what are some of the things that Democrats you think will try to do to try to push some things through, and especially like you said, they're in judiciary and obviously they're in revenue and tax.
You know, I just echo what Senator-elect Clarke Tucker says, which is that, you know, we've got really good ideas. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of really loud personalities on social media or in the headlines, and that can be different than the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is that Democrats have good ideas, and Democrats' ideas are generally pretty well respected within our two chambers. I think that we will continue to push the ideas that we know Arkansans really, really want. Our ideas will work better. You know, and by our, I mean the state legislature's ideas will work better the more voices we have. That has to include Democrats who are fighting for the everyday working Arkansan just as much as it includes everybody else, and I believe a majority of our colleagues agree with that.
And it does seem to, just kind of curiosity here, again, this might be just sort of a little bit of strategy involved with this as well, but not a lot of representation on either chamber in the state agencies. As we know, state agencies, kind of a big deal this year with redistricting being a part of the setup. I guess, was that by design, just to get some of the other priorities a little more to the forefront, or kind of what was the setup there?
Well, speaking on the House side, I mean, state agencies filled up well before I had a chance, so there was no design. But, you know, I will say that that while I know redistricting is at the top of everybody's list, my primary concern, as Senator-elect Tucker alluded to earlier, is protecting our right to vote. We saw the governor take some really prudent steps to protect the absentee and early vote this year. We saw no evidence of any problems, any fraud, anything like that that needs solving. Yet I worry that that we will see some legislation go through those committees that attempts to solve a problem that doesn't really exist, the only result of which will be disenfranchising Arkansans further, who, as we know, are already voting at abysmally low rates. So, you know, I wouldn't say that that not being on that committee was a plan, but I will say that we are ready to contend with what comes out.
So I'll just chime in. Yeah, so I'm the lone Democrat on state agencies on the Senate side, and it was the first committee choice that I made, and I'm excited about serving on that committee for all the reasons that Representative Clowney mentioned. To me, making sure that our democracy is functioning properly is really a threshold issue for all of the other issues that we care about. Because if we get it functioning properly, then government will be more responsive and serve the people of Arkansas better. And, you know, I really tip my cap to Governor Hutchinson and Secretary of State John Thurston for the way they administered this 2020 election in unprecedented circumstances. And, you know, I chose state agencies exactly for that reason, because I want to work on these precise issues. And as I said earlier, I want to make sure that the elections are safe and secure 100%. We want, obviously, only legal votes to be cast, but we want as many legally votes to be cast as possible and everyone to have access to the polls. As Representative Clowney mentioned, our participation is low. I know 2 years ago, we were either 49th and 50th or 50th in voter registration, and then either 49th or 50th in percentage of registered voters who actually voted. And I think those numbers held true for 2020 as well. So we have to do a better job as a state of making sure that the polls are accessible, that they're safe and secure, and that we're engaging our voters to exercise their sacred right to vote.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch the session. January 11th is the kickoff for that. Senator-elect Clarke Tucker, Representative Clowney, we certainly do appreciate the time. For starters, I love the backgrounds here. Let me see if I can get you guys up here real quick, because I really want the people to just notice, like, hey, this is where it's at here. With the back, there we go. Now we got it up there. Look at that. Some of the best backgrounds we've had.
I want my Christmas tie, but Nicole actually has the Christmas decorations, so I think she wins.
Absolutely. Well, hey, guys, again, we certainly appreciate the time, and we will talk again soon.
Thanks, Jay.
You bet.
Thank you, Jay.
And when we do come back, we will talk with longtime Republican chair of the Republican Party here in Arkansas, Doyle Webb. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.